Welcome everyone to this Beyond the Basics training for the California Educator Reporting System, or CERS as we call it. Today we are going beyond the basics of CERS writing extended response scores and related resources. This training session, brought to you by the California Department of Education, is an intermediate to advanced level training designed for CERS users who want to understand writing extended response scores and related resources. We also want to acknowledge that this training builds upon the Introduction to CERS trainings. Those are available both as a recording of the live training and as a series of micro-learning videos that can be viewed at any time. The links to all of that are in your resource guide. We've got a few housekeeping and logistics reminders before we get started. First, everyone is on mute, so you will submit your questions using the Q&A feature, not the chat feature, but the Q&A feature in Zoom. You can submit your questions at any time during our training today. Second, a copy of the resource guide was sent to you via email. I will continue to place that URL into the chat box. Clicking that link takes you to a folder where you can either download your own copy of the resource guide or make a copy into your own Google Drive. You don't have edit access until you make your own copy first. And if you're wondering, how do I get a copy of today's PowerPoint presentation? That link is at the top of the resource guide. So you're really going to want a copy of that resource guide. And last, we are recording today's presentation in about 2 weeks. The recording will be captioned and posted to that All Trainings and Recordings search on the CAASPP and ELPAC website. Okay, let's take a look at today's agenda. By the end of today's training, you will be able to give an overview of the Writing Extended Response, or WER, or WER scores, however you choose to pronounce that. Access those WER scores in CERS. Access related resources such as the Smarter Annotated Response Tool and the Smarter Content Explorer, and get answers to all your questions. And again, just a reminder that this Beyond the Basics session is building on the Introduction to CERS training. So we're diving a little deeper into topics beyond that introductory level. I also want to talk to you about the CERS Sandbox training tool. If you were with us for those Intro to CERS trainings, you know there's an excellent training tool called the CERS Sandbox. For all of our system demonstrations and your exploration time today, we'll be using the CERS Sandbox, which allows you to get familiar with CERS in a non-secure environment. The Sandbox is a public website, so the URL can be shared with anyone interested in learning more about CERS. The Sandbox has all the same features and functions as the live CERS environment, but uses fictitious data. So the interim assessment items in the CERS Sandbox are actually publicly released sample items. Very specifically, the CERS Sandbox does not have test questions from live and secure interim or summative assessments, which makes the Sandbox a great tool for individual exploration and group training. There's no need to worry about keeping the items, the results, the data, or student information secure when using the Sandbox. But that does mean there are a few differences between the Sandbox and the training tool, the Sandbox training tool and the live CERS environment. The first of those is the purpose. The Sandbox is for training on CERS features and functions, not for analyzing data. So some of the assessment rules, like alternate assessment for all, do not apply here. You will see students in the Sandbox with results from an alternate assessment and a general assessment. The second difference is security. As I mentioned, the CERS Sandbox is a public website. It uses fictitious students and data. Your live CERS environment has real student data and personally identifiable information and is therefore secure and password protected. And lastly is access. And what I mean by that is when you enter the Sandbox, we need to choose a role from the drop-down menu. In the live CERS environment, you will not be selecting a role. Live CERS uses the role or roles that you have been assigned in the Test Operations Management System, or TOMS. But in the Sandbox, choosing a role can be very helpful for users who want to learn how CERS appears for other user levels. For example, if you're an administrator and you want to see what the teacher level role looks like in CERS, you can access the CERS Sandbox by selecting a teacher level role. All right, the last piece of helpful background information before we jump into our content is about understanding TOMS roles and how they provide access to student results in CERS. So here's a quick recap. California LEA staff have access to CERS after they've been assigned a role in TOMS. And again, that's the Test Operations Management System. The user role in TOMS will determine the features and the data that are viewable in CERS for that person. So the LEA CAASPP coordinator, the LEA ELPAC coordinator, and the educator district roles have access to results for all students in the LEA. The site coordinator and educator site roles have access to results for all students in the school that they are associated with in TOMS. These roles that we've mentioned so far are what we call administrator roles in this training. And then teacher level users may access results for individual students in student groups that are assigned to them by the LEA or site coordinator or someone with an administrator role. So teachers need two things. They need their role in TOMS, either as a test examiner or test administrator, and they need someone with a TOMS administrator role to roster students to them in CERS. We call this managed student groups. It's often commonly referred to as rostering, and we'll be discussing, we discussed advanced rostering in module 1. So if you're an administrator and you want more information, highly recommend you go watch that recording. All right, the last thing, let's do some quick introductions. My name is Nikki Antonovich. I work for the Sacramento County Office of Education. I will be your producer for this training. This session is led by two of our excellent CERS trainers. We have Stephanie Fortunato. She's an educational consultant in instruction, assessment, and professional learning. And Alicia Sanborn from the Washington Unified School District, the Fresno one, because there are a couple of those throughout the state. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Alicia.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Nikki. And yes, there are two in the state of California. So first, let's jump in and focus on an overview of those writing extended response scores in CERS. All right, before we get into the data, let's take a step back and talk about where the writing extended responses, or WERs, originate. The WER is also known as the full write or essay question. It is item number 2 on the ELA performance task, otherwise known as the PT. Students will receive a WER score for any assessment that has a full write, and this includes the ELA summative assessment, interim comprehensive assessments or ICAs for ELA, and the ELA performance task interim assessment blocks or IABs. Students will receive a prompt with one of the following task types. Grades 3 through 5 could either receive narrative, opinion, or informational. Grades 6 through 8 could either receive a narrative, argumentative, or explanatory. And then grades 9 through 11 receive argumentative or explanatory on those summative assessments. Once the student has submitted their writing extended response, they are hand scored. Hand scoring is a local process where educators score student responses before a result appears in CERS. So this could look like in our ICAs, some IABs, some focused IABs, all CAST interim assessments, and ELPAC interim assessments for writing and speaking have a hand scoring component. But sometimes, I'm going to put my LEA hat on, we'll log in and teachers will say, well, where are my scores? Well, we need to access in TOMS the training and scoring guides. They are secure under the resources section and access the hand scoring system to be able to score for them to then generate within CERS. As far as ICAs, if we're only giving one part A, we won't see them either. We need both parts to be administered for that scoring. The WER scores are scored on a rubric, and there's a rubric for each of the 3 writing traits: organization purpose, evidence elaboration, and conventions. And we also want to call out that if a student receives the genre of narrative, the score for evidence and elaboration is called development and elaboration. All right, so if a student earns a 0 on the writing trait scores within a component, a corresponding condition code will be assigned. If a student has no response, they will receive a B for blank. If a student has not provided a meaningful response, they will receive an I for insufficient. And this includes responses composed of a significant amount of copied text where there's not enough original material for the rater to determine a score. If a response is in a language other than English, they'll receive an L for language. If a student provides a response that is unrelated to the task or source, they will receive a T for topic, or off topic, I should say. If a student has clearly not written to the purpose designated in the task, they will receive an M for off purpose. Additional information about these codes can be found at the link in your resource guide. All right, so enough of the slides. Let's jump right into demo. I just want to reiterate that we are going to use the CERS sandbox. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate on over real quick to our CAASPP and ELPAC.org website. Over here on the right side, you will see the CERS California Educator Reporting System. Here on the left is that live CERS environment to which you need the TOMS account. And then over here is the sandbox to which we're using for our demos today. I'm going to give my father some love as a middle school teacher within the sandbox. He's retiring this year. Gotta love middle school teachers. All right, so from here, I need to select a group to come in and show you where these writing extended responses live. So I'm choosing my 6th grade student group. Over here on the right, I need to find my performance task to which I can show you these writing extended responses. With interims, there's multiple sessions that you could select if there's more than one. But scrolling down here for an ELA performance tasks, you get that results by student view. You can sort your information as you would like to analyze the data. But this is where we find all that is related to our writing responses. Scrolling down to writing trait scores here and selecting that, you're able to see a points distribution for your class as an entire whole. So when we look here, we're able to see evidence elaboration, organization purpose, conventions, and we're able to get an average of how our students did and the distribution. So with my teacher hat, I can use this to inform how my students are able to, within each category, be successful and plan accordingly. You are able to actually go ahead and export to a CSV file. So if you want to look different class box and their averages here to help inform your instruction, you're able to do so. But I want to go ahead and go back to that student view. I'm just going to select Ted here. I'm able to, with Ted, print his full IAB report with a generation of a button here, where it would give me his writing extended response. But I want to go ahead and navigate on over to what that looks like to give you just a little bit more detail of these condition codes and the information that we get once we have a downloaded student report. So here I have one already ready to go. And so here is Ted's. And here you get your scale score of how student did and where they fell. Over here, standard not met. We get the Lexile range, where they fall within the achievement levels. We get the student achievements by composite here when we generate the ISR, the individual student report. But right here on the second page is where the writing extended response information lives. So for the student's summative assessment, I went in and generated that for Ted. He was assigned the narrative on the actual summative assessment. He received for development and elaboration a condition code of an I for insufficient. And it has the key here, just in case you need that for reference. So he did earn the 0 because of the received condition code. Organization purpose for Ted, he was off purpose. So he received the condition code of M, again, a score of 0 out of 4. In the conventions here of an M, he was off purpose. So no score for Ted was received on the summative performance task in the prior school year and looking at this individual student report. So teachers, I know family conferences are coming up. You're gearing up, creating those action plans. goal setting opportunities with students. How powerful would it be to sit and have a discussion with your kids around how they performed with the writing extended response on the prior year's summative performance task to really set the stage and moving forward for the new school year? And Stephanie is going to really go into how you might be able to create a plan with some wonderful resources that you have at your fingertips. But I do want to show you just really quickly here. I'm going to head home. I'm going to go back to my sixth grade group because I want to show you teachers how you'd be able to do this for your students in bulk. So here I'm in that sixth grade group. If you come up here to printable reports, you will be able to then drill down to summative if you're wanting to see how they did the year before. You're going to want to select ELA because that's going to give our prior year and then create that report. It brings you right here and it will generate just what I showed here for Ted in his individual student report and his second page that had his writing extended response. It will generate, sorry, wrong page, for your entire class to be able to have that conversation. And I want to take it just a little step further. So in CERS, you are able as teachers to create custom groups. I'm not going to model that for you because you can't access that as we've had in another session, but I have drilled down here my multilingual learners, and I was using the sandbox a bit ago, so you wouldn't be able to see it now. Sorry. But the same idea in creating that custom group, I could generate that bulk report for them just like I modeled here for you, printable reports. I have my ML students only to generate that report to do some analysis. So really powerful tool to be able to go ahead and download for your classes, thinking goal setting, family conferences. But I do want to note one thing for my teachers in the room today. The individual student reports are different than the than the student score reports that our families earn through the mail or access via their different platforms for the student information systems. This is really meant for educators, but sitting down, having a conversation with your students would be such a powerful tool. So I just want to make sure I point that out. Individual student reports, as you see here, are different than those student score reports that our families get. They're meant for educators and as we have conversations with our kids. Definitely extremely powerful. All right, so it's your turn. You'll want to go into the sandbox using the role that's closest to you. The instructions and a link to the sandbox are in your resource guide. Consider one or all of the following tasks, your choice. Access those writing trait scores through the results view, which I first modeled for you. Download an ISR to view scores by that individual student or even try in bulk as I showed under printable reports. Just remember you will need to view an ISR for the summative ELA, ELA ICA, or ELA performance task IAB to be able to see those condition codes. And as you explore, please put those questions into the Q&A box and we'll respond to as many as we can. And just a couple of reminders, certain roles will not have access to certain features and the instructions for the sandbox as a teacher and as an administrator are in your resource guide. And this is a sandbox. The data does look different in your live environment. And most importantly, have fun, click away. You cannot break anything. I did just because it timed out. I did it too soon, but for you, it will work. All right. All righty. Like to invite you back together with us. Hope you had some time to explore the system and generate a few of those individual student reports, maybe had some ahas for student groups, some teachers in the room. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. We want to take a pause and answer any questions that might have come up in Q&A.
All right, Alicia, the question I saw asked a few different ways is, if I have my current students, I have access to them in CERS, whether that's as an administrator through school and grade or as a teacher and they're rostered to me as a group, and I want to print their previous year's ISRs. Can I do that?
Yes, you absolutely can. And so when I went and I modeled under the printable reports, you would just in the drop down select the previous year, 24, 25, summative ELA, just like I have modeled, and it will generate your current students' reports from the prior year.
Excellent. Thank you
You could
much.
even go back another year. And that's it?
That was it for Q&A. We
Okay,
can pass it over to
wow.
Stephanie.
Wow. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be joining you here this afternoon. And we're excited for this next section too. So next we want to go ahead and showcase some systems that function as resources for those WER scores. So these are other systems that are part of the ecosystem that support instruction now that we have those WER data at our fingertips. So we have selected the Smarter Annotated Response Tool and also the Smarter Content Explorer, since these resources will help you to dig into those WER scores, mouthful, even further. And so with that, we actually are going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to do our second demonstration of this training. And again, just to reiterate for everyone, we're going to be using the CERS sandbox as our starting point to really connect to the tool-related tools for digging into those WER scores that are found in CERS. And so you'll find the links to the CERS sandbox and also to the tools that we're going to be using in your resource guide. And so with that, I want to actually start us off right where Alicia had left us off, right? We were taking a closer look at some summative data. Specifically, we were looking at those rating trait scores. You saw that there were these different purposes that are in here, the different categories for how student responses are actually scored. And so this is really going to lead us to an amazing system. It's available for California educators that's going to provide more details for you about how writing is scored on Smarter Balanced ELA. So this is the Smarter Annotated Response Tool. And to get there, you can do a Google search. You see I've typed it right in here. This will take you directly to a link. It's super easy to find. You'll also find the link in today's resource guide, which I know has been dropped into the chat. And when you get to that, it is going to take you to our homepage here. And here you're going to be really able to browse a range of response types. You're going to be able to explore some interactive scoring rationales. You'll take a look at some rubrics. And you also have the ability to practice scoring on your own or even with your colleagues. So you'll see here on this landing page, we have a little bit of an overview. Sometimes the Smarter Annotated Response Tool you'll hear being called sort of like the SMART tool. So that's sort of the acronyms that's right here. So it gives you some information about it. And as I scroll down the page, I'm able to see some information about what it is that those writing tasks measure. So just as we were looking at the different purposes for writing, we're able to see those here. So we have narrative, informational, explanatory, opinion, and argumentative. And what I love here is right here with the click of a button, you can easily download each of the different rubrics. So I'm going to go ahead and download that here. So if you're ever wondering where it is that I can go to find the rubrics, using the Smarter Annotated Response Tool is one place where they are. And just as Alicia was mentioning, you'll see here for narrative, this is the narrative performance task. We'll see the different traits here for organization and purpose, for development and elaboration, and also for conventions. So it's a nice, quick, easy place to go to be able to find the rubrics that you're looking for those writing extended responses. One of the features, I absolutely love here is this button here where you can go to related student responses. So I'm going to go ahead and select this here. And this is going to take me to an abundance of sample student responses, on those different WER writing prompts. And so what I love here is you have the ability, you might see some of these column headers here. They're easy to be able to sort. You can sort them by grade level. You can sort them by purpose. Maybe if you're getting together in a PLC and you want to take a closer look at some responses for organization and purpose, you can sort these with the click of a button. It's really nice. Maybe you want to look at student responses for some of those condition codes. Maybe you want to look at some sample responses for a student who received a 1. It's really easy to be able to sort and filter these. When you're thinking about filtering by grade and purpose, you're thinking about how it is that maybe you can identify where some common strengths are. So when you're looking at that data in the CERS sandbox or in the live CERS environment, you're thinking, where are some common strengths with my students in their writing? Where might some misconceptions lie? And you can use some of these samples to really help to guide targeted instruction. So I love being able to sort these columns very easily, but you can also go ahead and you can use the filters and you can search some samples by prompt name. You can search by different trait scores. You can search by purpose. Here I had already selected narrative, and also you can search by grade level. I'm going to go ahead and select search by grade 5. And so here I have a whole bunch of student responses. I can see that the prompt name was on Wales. And we're going to drill down into one of these examples right here. So let's take a look at this one right here. Perfect. So here I'm able to see a sample student response. A student had, their purpose was on narrative. I can see a sample student response here. And now maybe I want to take a closer look at the scoring for the sample student response and the annotations. So you'll see here that there's a little toggle switch. I can go ahead and switch this to the on position here. And here I'm able to get some more information about those traits and scores. I see here again that we have the 3 different traits: organization purpose, development elaboration, and also conventions. And here is where, this is so fantastic. I love this. When I select one of those little traits, I now am able to see a bunch of these lettered boxes. And each of these lettered boxes that you see here contain portions of the scoring rubric that we had looked at downloading earlier that relates directly to some sample student responses. So you can select any of these boxes, you can read the annotation, and if it's available in this student sample response, you'll see the highlighted corresponding text that will appear. So let's say, for example, I want to take a look at the student had adequately established a setting, narrator, characters, and/or point of view. By selecting this, I'm able to see the highlighted text on the left-hand side. I can see the annotations of where this refers to in the sample student response. I could do the same thing for development and elaboration. Same thing, here are those lettered boxes. If I want to go ahead and take a look at where some of these samples might appear, I can select it and I see some samples on the left-hand side here, right? Some annotations that show why this student would have received this score. Same thing for conventions. Maybe I want to take it limited use of correct punctuation. And here's where it shows me some examples of why the student received a 1 here for conventions. So I love that you're able to get some more detailed information. As you're scrolling down the page, you'll see here that there are some related links. You're able to actually download student responses here. And so this is really a great way for teachers to, you can use this as individual practice. Maybe you want to access some of the unannotated responses and you want to practice scoring them individually and maybe compare them with some of the expert annotated versions to really be able to help to refine those assessment skills. You can do that. I'm going to click this button here. I can download a whole bunch of different sample responses. And what a great way when you're working in your PLCs or maybe some grade level team work that you're doing, looking at a bunch of sample student responses. You'll see here, these are are the unannotated ones. And this is where you can work with your colleagues on calibrating your scoring, right? Thinking about how you can all review the same types of student work samples. You can compare your scores with the tools that are provided for the annotations and really align the rubric interpretation. You could use this with your students, right? In the classroom. You can take a look at them, have students use the rubric and identify, gosh, what kind of score might they give this, right? Using that rubric in the classroom for students to be using that same type of academic vocabulary. So such great resources here. If at any point too, when you're on this page and maybe you need some help like navigating, how do I get through here? You'll see here on the bottom left, there is the help feature here. I love this. This gives you a nice little tour of the page, walks you through each of the different components of it. So if at any time you're like, wait, where do I go? What is this about? This gives you such great information about each of those components that we just highlighted now. If you ever want to go back to the homepage, you can go ahead, you can select either the home icon here or this Smarter Balanced icon. It'll take you right back to the homepage, which is where we started. If you want to go just directly, you can use this left navigation panel to look at some individual student responses. It will take you back directly here to where we were looking. And I love this little information icon. If at any point you need some help, there are some additional terms that you want to know about some of the different features that are found on this page, you can go here. Gives you some background information about the Smarter Annotated Response tool. And I love these FAQs. There are some common frequently asked questions that are here. How can you use SMART to support your teaching? How can I use annotated student work as a parent? So some great Q&As that you can find here as well. So a great resource. We're so happy to be able to highlight it here for you. But wait, there's more. I want to show you another one. So I'm going to take us back to the CERS sandbox again. We were here just a little bit ago. We were looking at the summative data that was here. I want to take a look. We know that CERS also, here's an interim assessment block on read literary text. We know that CERS is able to give us some really great data about how our students are performing. We get data on their overall scores. We get data on claim and target performance and item level details. So you'll see here on this interim assessment here, I've got some information on claims and targets and standards. And so we want to go to the next place, which is the Smarter Content Explorer. And again, I'm going to do a quick little Google search here. When I type in Smarter Content Explorer with a quick search, this is going to take you to that page, or you'll find the link also in today's resource guide. But this is where you can really go. It's going to provide the context for those assessments that you're able to see in CERS. Gives you some more information about what the standard is asking, gives you some sample items. I know teachers are always looking for, where can I find sample items? It talks about what different types of skills are assessed, talks about the claims and how they're defined, and also what some instructional next steps could be. So this is our landing page here, our homepage here in Smarter Content Explorer. You'll see at the top of the page, we'll have this little ribbon that gives us some tabs: Explore, Test Development, and Support. And let's start by taking a look at the test development section here. So when I select this here, this is going to give us some more information about how the tests are developed, how they're designed. We often get questions from teachers: where can I find the adjusted blueprints? Where can I find even the full blueprints? Here's where they are. Right here in Smarter Content Explorer is where you can find them. You'll see them here for ELA literacy. You'll also find the adjusted blueprints for mathematics. We know that we are using these. These are approved again for this year to be able to use. So again, with the click of a button, I'm able to download the adjusted blueprints and sort them here. I can go by grade level, and it gives me the information here. Same thing with that mathematics one. We're able to find that here as well. As I scroll down the page, I'm also able to see how those interim assessments are developed as well. And same thing, you can go ahead and get the interim assessment blueprints for ELA literacy. Here they are for the ICAs. You'll find them for mathematics as well for both the IABs and the ICAs. Again, super easy with the click of a button. Here we're able to go ahead and access the interim assessment block when you're considering which ones do I want to administer. Here's where you want to go to take a closer look at what's offered by grade level, what are the claims and targets that are on each interim assessment, the DOK levels, and additional information. So a great place to go to be able to get those interim assessment blueprints. But as I scroll down the page, there's more. You've got some information here on accessibility guidelines, thinking about our English language learners and different types of accessibility to support our students. I can continue to scroll down, and here we were talking about how the Smarter Annotated Response tool had those rubrics in there as well. Here you can find them again. So you'll see that you have the full right rubrics for all of those different writing task purposes, right? Informational, argumentative, they are here as well. So plenty of places for you to find that type of information. I've got to show you one of our favorites. We all love this so much. If you have not had access to or taken a look at the ELA construct relevant vocabulary lists or the math construct relevant vocabulary lists, they are here and they are a treat for all of us. Here, as I'm looking at these, you'll see here that these lists that are in here are all terms that we want to make sure that our students know. They're essential to the construct of English language arts. You're going to want to think, how can I incorporate these lists into my instruction? I love that they're all sorted by grade level. So these are the vocabulary lists for grade 3. You'll find them as you see here for grade 4. I'm already thinking about how do I want to make sure that my students are seeing these regularly. I'm thinking about having those word walls in my classroom. You might even want to have students who have these lists that are on their desk. They're continually seeing them. You might have index cards where students are maybe highlighting certain terms of the week that you're utilizing. Really finding ways that these can be embedded into instruction every day so that these are terms that students are familiar with and that they're utilizing even with one another in their academic language and discourse. Okay, so ELA construct relevant vocabulary, math construct, all of this goodness. Remember, I'm going to scroll back up to the top of the page, is found under this test development tab. But I want to show you piece before we give you time to practice, and that is the explore feature here. It's also at the very top. As I select this here, now you're able to really go in and drill down more on claims and targets and standards and be able to access some sample questions. So let's take a look at grade 3. We'll take a look at English language arts. So you're thinking about, gosh, I just gave an interim assessment block in my class, or maybe I want to give an interim assessment in my class, and I want to find out some supporting resources here for me. So I've now selected grade 3, English language arts, and I've selected claim 1 on reading, and here I can actually see all of the different target areas here. So I'm going to select, maybe I'm focusing this week on informational text, and I'd like to see some sample questions on this. I'm going to go ahead and select target 8. As soon as I did that, I could already see what the related standards are here for it. And as I scroll down the page, I have access to a resource card. Now, this resource card summarizes exactly what I just selected. So it tells me I selected English language art for grade 3, claim 1, which is reading. I want to take a closer look at target 8, and it gives me the standards that correspond to this. So we're going to select the More button here. And this is where I'm able to see a sample item, or sometimes items. Sometimes there's more than one. Let's take a look at the sample item that's here for this one. This summarizes what the item is that I just browsed. Oh, I have 2 questions here. So each of these questions are sample questions for you to look at. It also summarizes what we just narrowed our search with. So if I select this one here, it shows me the exact sample question here. I'm already thinking, how can I maybe pull some students aside? Maybe I want to work in small groups. Maybe I want to have this question highlighted as a problem of the day when my students are walking in. You have access to an abundance of sample questions here and a variety of ways that you can use these with your students. So love that feature there. As I scroll down, here's a ribbon that gives you all of the different pieces, corresponding pieces of information. Here are those standards that are here. I can scroll down, I can find out some clarifying statements, but I want to show you this one button here, which is on task models. Oftentimes we hear from teachers as to what are the different types of question stems that I can use in my instruction every day with my students. You're going to find that here under task models. So I can see that with this one, right, for grade 3, claim 1, that I can see that I have 3 different task models. It tells me the types of questions that students are going to see on an assessment. It tells me the DOK level. And as I scroll down, I can see here are some question stems that I can use with my students. So regardless of what you might be teaching, you might be in the middle of a history social science lesson. You might be teaching science to your student, thinking about how students can use these appropriate stems, how you can pose the questions to your students, how students can pose these types of questions with one another. These are right here at your fingertips. So lots of great information and content explorer that you can really peruse, and connecting back again to this data that you are seeing here in CERS. So it's just some other resources for you to be able to use. Now, with that, that's lots and lots of things to be able to practice. We want to give you some time to get in there, to dig in, to explore. So you're not going to be using in this exploration the CERS sandbox. We want you to get into these systems. So the instructions and the links to those 2 systems we just looked at, Smarter Annotated Response Tool and the Smarter Content Explorer, are in your resource guide. But remember, I showed you, you can also do a quick Google search. So consider exploring, completing both of these tasks. I'm sure you'll be able to even get to a couple more, but get in there and try to access those annotated responses that we were looking at in the Smarter Annotated Response Tool. And also get in there, find those, accessing those blueprints that are also found in Smarter Content Explorer. Well, we do have one last topic before we wrap up, and that's the CERS resources that are there to support you in your use of CERS. And so as we talk about each resource, you'll notice that the links will be found in your resource guide. And so this way you have easy access to all of these great resources in one place. And so let's go ahead, let's talk about some of these CERS resources. Again, they're all in your resource guide, and most of these that we're going to be mentioning can be found on the CERS resource webpage. The CERS resources webpage contains buttons to access the live CERS environment and also the CERS sandbox. You'll also find the CERS user guide and the interpretive guide, which can also be accessed through CERS or in the CERS sandbox. You'll find CERS instructional videos, which includes the Understanding the California Educator Reporting System video for all CERS users. And you'll also find a series of quick reference guides, which walk you step by step through various CERS functions. Now, we do also want to call out those condition codes for those ELA Writing Extended Response flyer. You'll find that flyer link in today's resource guide. And we do want to remind you that the introduction to CERS trainings were recorded as a series of micro-learning videos. And so this will allow you the flexibility to watch the entire training all the way through, or to even go in there and view some specific topics without having to view the full training itself. We've come to the end of today's training, and so we hope that you found some useful information on how to use the California Educator Reporting System to access those writing extended response scores and how to use those related systems that we were just highlighting. On behalf of the CDE and the Sacramento County Office of Education and your training team, we thank you for spending your time with us today, and we hope to see you again soon. So have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon.